Well, since seemingly some of you guys actually care about the Mercedes project, I figured I'd let you know what I'm up to today. I just pulled the transmission out of it a couple weeks ago, maybe it was last week, I'm not sure. And I posted a photo on Peach Parts of it. You know, we saw that little metal strip on the torque converter nose up here. I was talking to an automatic transmission rebuild tech, and that's apparently a very, very bad thing. So what I'm going to do, since that basically is a death sentence for the front pump, and the converter, you know, be more of a pain to deal with and might compromise the seal. The second transmission we went through, the one that slipped in all but third gear, if you guys have been watching the entire saga, never leaked. It just slipped really badly. So what we are going to do with this one is I'm going to use either this converter or the converter from number 1. I know that one's good. This one should be good as well, since the transmission worked fine in third gear. And I'm actually draining the plug out of this. This one looks like it's in really good shape out of a little bit farther south car. I digress. Anyway, we're going to take the entire front pump assembly, those bolts off. Front pump just basically slides right off. Out of this trans and put it in trans number 3, which we did burnouts with last year, so we're pretty sure it works just fine. And then put a new O-ring on the front seal of that, put it all back together, put a new converter seal on it, which I still have upstairs, even though this one looks like it's been replaced already once before, which would make sense. Because I think I replaced... No. Maybe? No. I don't recall. I might have replaced that seal. Anyway, we're doing it again. It's a cheap seal. In order to get the converter off this trans, it was really easy. These things have this little pin that sits up through this hole up here, and it kind of just rotates a little bit, keeps it from falling out, which is really smart. So, I'm pretty sure these are 13 mil. Actually, they feel like 12, but we're going to go with a 13 anyway. I'm going to zip those off, make an enormous mess, and show you when the converter, or sorry, the front pump is off. Because it'll look an awful lot like, yeah, shoot, you can't see it at all. I'll show you in a minute. So, I have all the bolts out of it now. I don't really know if there's any special trick to this, but I'm basically just gonna tug on the nose a little bit, maybe get a hammer, gonna tap on it a little bit around the edges, see if I can break it loose, and pull that front pump off. I'm assuming it's gonna leak a lot of fluid. Well, it didn't take much of a tap for it to really light off, so gonna kind of wait for it to do its business, clean up a little bit, and then I think I've unseated it now, so I'm just gonna kind of back it off, walk it off. I've got my rubber mallet here and a pry bar to kind of work with it, but this is just as much a learning experience for me as it is for you guys. I hate automatics. So terrible. Okay, I'm gonna very foolishly attempt to one hand pull this off and one hand film. So you can see on an automatic, the central shaft does not come out, but this does. That's because it uses a speed difference between this spline and this spline to generate pressure with the torque converter. And that's how the viscous coupling system works. Oh my word. There's our pump. She's looking mighty fine. Nice and clean. And there is the inner workings of an automatic fail box. Holy cow. I want no part of that. That's just witchcraft. But anyway, this part, and probably this part, or that part, I'm going to take them upstairs, rip the other front pump off the other trans, and see what we can do. I'm realizing I didn't buy enough ATF. I'm going to drain the converter because the fluid's looking kind of gross. So I'm going to have to for sure go get some new ATF for it, but hopefully the combination of these two parts and the fact that this one still has good, where are you, pump teeth, you can see it right on the top there, that's one of the two teeth. That's what we really need. They have to line up with these grooves. I did not pay close enough attention when I put that first transmission back together. That guy ended up destroying the old front pump when I was doing a seal on it. And obviously the transmission's completely no good at that point. On a modern trans, you can just replace this piece, but since this basically would cost more than a couple of used transmissions, that's the route I went. Someday I'd like to put this Getrag box in there and have a manual, but that's just an awful lot of cash and I don't know a good machinist. So for another day, anyway, I'm gonna take these two pieces upstairs, lock up down here, and we'll see what we can do. So unfortunately, I ordered the wrong part. I ordered a front pump seal, not a front pump gasket. This is the seal or O-ring, not anywhere near big enough. This is the old gasket right here I have to replace. So, yet another day where I get almost nothing done. I'm still gonna yank the front pump off of that one before I go any further, just so it's kind of ready to slap and go next time I get the part. And I kind of want to, examine it, see if I can see any obvious damage, even though I'm told that that is a really, really bad thing, having that bearing race on the torque converter, which I definitely believe. It's probably very, very important. So, yeah, fun. So I'm going to be back at it again today with the Mercedes transmission. Last time I called it a day because I realized I ordered the wrong seal for this. However, that just showed up today, so task for the day is put this on the transmission, bolt it all together, get it back in the car, and then fill it up with fluid. I am electing to drain the torque converter out of that one just because the fluid was so nasty, and then have real good ATF for it this time just to see if that makes any difference. Pentos and ATF1 is the best. The 1LV is what's recommended for new Mercedes. Generally this stuff is a gold color, but this is red as you can see, so I'm hoping that this will be ideal for this transmission. This is about $100 in fluid, so hopefully it doesn't puke it all up. Yeah, I took the red M3 here. Halfway here it died. Couldn't get it started again. Cranked the key over and I didn't hear the fuel pump. So this is an E46 M3, or the S54 S62 fuel pump relay. Stupid, right? 8 pins? These are kind of expensive. They're driven by a pulse width signal off the ECU instead of just an on-off ground like most fuel pumps. So I got some wire and I just jumpered the fuel pumps on and drove it the rest of the way here, but I have to order one of these. So I'm going to take care of that off video with this awesome piece of machinery here. Then we'll get going on ripping the front pump out of that transmission, putting that gasket in it, and then jamming the whole thing back up into that stupid thing. Hopefully do burnouts again soon. So I've got the transmission out of the car, and the front pump actually fought me quite a bit harder than the other one did. And when I got it open, I see that this needle bearing is absolutely destroyed. Here's the second pump for reference. And it took out a clutch pack with it, which is what I have right here. This looks okay. But what I'm gonna do, since I clearly see heat marks on this, oh man, I don't even know. I'm gonna go take this out of my donor transmission in the basement, confirm that that one doesn't look any better, because this transmission still drove just fine in all the gears, and the other one did not. But I'm hoping to find that the inside of the transmission doesn't look any different on that one. Because I'm hoping that that needle bearing in there is supposed to be in there. And keep in mind, this was riding up against it, probably doing massive amounts of damage. I am stunned. This is super rough. It looks absolutely terrible. Things got very, very hot in this transmission for sure. This one, I mean, this one looks pretty darn nice. So, again, I'm gonna run downstairs, yank this clutch pack out of the transmissions. I guess I have both transmissions down there, and see which one looks like it might be a better solution. Oh man. So here's the clutch drum out of this transmission. It looks absolutely stunning. No heat marks, no nothing. This one slipped. But I do see a needle bearing in there, so that's a good sign. That part of the transmission upstairs is looking just fine. This looks nice and clean on both of them. I did notice, however, this needle bearing dropped out of the front of this clutch drum. You can kind of see where it sat in there. So I'm going to check that, and then I'm also going to check this roller bearing pack on the other one. And if that looks screwed up, then I'm going to have to take the front clutch drum out of that transmission. That transmission's good. Or I could put the front pump in that. I don't know. This is stupid. But for sure I need to take this needle bearing upstairs with me, because this part was absolutely destroyed on that transmission we just dealt with. So this is coming with, and then we're going to have to look at the other drum as well. Luckily, if I had to, this transmission also looks really good inside. It's got a needle bearing in it, and I know that one didn't slip at all. So that is the backup, but I'm trying to keep that transmission intact just in case this front pump swap doesn't work, because then we have one more chance to try with that transmission with our good front pump assembly. But I'm gonna go back upstairs with the needle bearing and see what we can find. Bye guys. So here's the clutch drum from the transmission we just took out of the car. I don't know if I want to use that. There's chunks of old needle bearing in it, and that race looks like it's just gonna chew this thing to pieces. I don't know, guys. I think I gotta go do research and see which gear this drum is. If this is third gear, I'll swap it over from the second transmission that we took this pump from, that pump from, because that was the only gear that worked perfectly. It could have been a B2 piston issue on that transmission, I'm not sure, but I gotta do some looking because I don't want to destroy that needle bearing. It's probably a really expensive piece and we only have 2 left. Oh no. So here's the clutch pack from the transmission that slipped. I just took off the top circlip and the top friction plate to check it out. It actually looks pretty good. So I'm gonna take the other one apart the same way, the transmission that we just took out. See how that one looks. If the clutches look comparable, then I'll just leave them that way. But if the clutches look better in the other transmission clutch pack, I'm going to transfer the clutches over to this good clutch bell, or clutch pack, clutch housing, reverse, or not reverse. I think this is just called a gear drum. I'm not an automatic transmission expert, so. Anyway, I'm going to bring the other drum up here, take it apart this far, and see what we're looking at. Honestly, that's the transmission that didn't slip. That's the transmission that did slip. I'm seeing that the transmission that did slip has better conditioned clutches than the one that didn't. So I think I'm just going to put this one back together. Not even any hot spots on that disc. I'm going to put it back together and see what happens. Because this one's got few hot spots on the disc, and from what I know about manual transmissions, that's the one I would put in, even though it's out of a more questionable transmission. So I'm gonna put the circlip back in it, put the needle bearing in it, clean up the surface a little bit on the transmission. I was able to get the gasket off in a few pieces. Then I have to get the gasket off of this, because it came off in a different way. Then I drain the torque converter, then I slap it together, then I slap it in the car. So we'll see. I'm getting nervous about this because when you can see that far into a transmission and you don't know much about automatic transmissions, that seems a bit sketchy. So we'll see. This might just grenade the moment I get it in the car, but it's worth trying. Well, I now have the gear drum reassembled from the second transmission, the slipping one, and installed into transmission number 3. Next step up is putting that needle bearing in there, then I guess cleaning out the front pump and slapping that on. Oh, I wish this car the best of luck, guys. I am at my wit's end with automatic transmission things. Oh, I see some goop on there I gotta rinse off real quick. Well, got it cleaned up and installed. Everything's fitting together nicely, so I'm just gonna clean up the surface of the transmission bell housing a little bit, get the gasket off of this pump, slap it together, drain the converter, and then, knock on wood, should be ready to put it together. Well, got the new gasket on there. Now I get to slip a bolt through it and figure out exactly which way this aligns inside. I want to say these grooves here go on the bottom of the transmission bell housing, because they go around the clutch band on the bottom, and it seems to match up better with the holes down here. I acknowledge this is not as clean a mating surface as it should be, but I don't care. So I'm gonna chuck it back together, and actually I'll probably put the front seal in the pump first while it's off the transmission, 'cause it's a little easier, but yeah, it's time to put it together. Yeah, I'm going to replace that seal first, because it would be idiotic to not do it when the access is so easy. So to do this, ideally you want a seal puller, but what I'm going to do is just basically take a standard screwdriver and pop it down into the seal until it breaks, and then you can just pry it right out and hammer the new one in. So my ghetto but effective way of getting seals out is to hammer it down into the side without scratching the side too badly of your housing, and then once you've got it 3/4 of the way down, just turn your screwdriver, pops it up, and out comes your seal. What you're doing there is the outside of these seals is metal, and you're slicing through it, and at the same time the tension spring. So as you can see right now, yeah, it's hard to see, but there's no damage to the part that matters. So a little bit of a ding down there, but that doesn't matter for sealing purposes. The side is completely unscathed. So I've got my new Cortecro seal. Key to installing these, there really isn't any, but ideally get a block of wood or a socket that is the perfect outside diameter size of this thing, and then lightly tap on it with a mallet. If you're feeling really ambitious, you can use a hammer like that and just go slower on the edge. I'm gonna just use that hammer with a little bit of a wood block in between so I don't damage the seal, and then tap it until it's flush. And there you have it, a new seal in a 722 series, well, 722 3 series automatic transmission pump. So now it's time for me to make sure this gasket stays on there properly, slam it in the trans, and then toss the converter on it. Well, it all went back together pretty nicely actually. So the next step for me is to torque those bolts down around the perimeter. I'm going to look up a torque spec because I don't know, and then you see the little teeth in there across from one another. I have to make sure the torque converter lines up perfectly with those, otherwise I'm going to end up with another broken front pump, which I have no desire to do. So I'm going to torque down the perimeter bolts on the pump, drain the converter, assuming that that bolt breaks loose. Then I'm going to look up, again, torque specs for that, and then fluid fill capacity with a torque converter. This transmission still has quite a bit of fluid in it, so I don't think I'm going to need all that much, but it's definitely going to have lost some fluid. So, yep, that's the order of operations anyway. Oh, do I wish I had smell-o-vision for you guys. The fluid that came out of that donut does not smell good at all. So I'm going to now top off the converter about halfway full with fluid, just to kind of prime it. Now that it's completely drained, I want to shove it onto the transmission. That will reduce the amount of time that there's no fluid in it, or low fluid in the converter, and you know, by powers of, I guess, proxy or whatever, time that the transmission is running, pumping fluid but not lubricating its components. So it's kind of like filling a diesel oil filter housing after an oil change, just to kind of get it primed a little bit faster. So I'm going to take some of that new Pentosan ATF1 LV, and I'm going to put a couple liters in the converter before I actually slap it on there. But just pour it right in the top, and then make sure your tabs are aligned this groove with the tabs in there, and you should be sitting pretty. So there it is. I've got the fail donut on the fail box, ready to slap into the car. I really hope this goes okay. Hey, there's a Ferrari. Okay, I've actually had this transmission back into the car 3 times now. I wasn't able to get the torque converter seated the entire way until just now. I actually made a mark here, level with the torque converter flange there, the one that bolts to the ring gear, and that's where it was before, and I couldn't get it to seat properly. But having already destroyed one of these front pumps before on the old transmission, I didn't force it. Took it back out, and what I did was I manually aligned the teeth inside of the front pump vertically, and then I took a paint pen, actually, you can see there, when I installed it, I had that lined up vertically, and it had, I think, 4 clunks, 4 distinct steps. But if you don't want to listen for the steps, just make sure your converter is well back of this little circular hole here. Before, it was pretty much even with that. The seam of the converter was even with this hole. So if you're there, you need to move it a little bit further. Another test you can do is spin the converter by hand as fast as you can, basically. After 15 revolutions or so, you'll start to feel it get really hard, and that's a sign that you are pumping fluid. So if your torque converter gets hard to spin after you spin it manually, you've got it seated in there. Or if you want to look at the depth of how far it actually is, it's also seated. So at this point, I'm going to put it in for the 5th time, and hopefully it slaps right in and it's fixed. We'll see. Not optimistic. Well, the hobbled together transmission's in the car, all bolted up, exhaust is in. Now I'm gonna fire it up, get the trans up to temperature, add fluid, and then, I don't know, just start the process of making sure the fluid's at the right level, and then, depending on how this goes, maybe take the car for a drive before I head home here tonight. It's been a long day already, and it's only 3 o'clock. Uh-oh. The linkage needs new bushings on this car really, really badly. And I just need to make sure it's in park. There's my linkage. Sorry you can't see anything under here, but feels like it's in park. Good enough for me. Okay. I don't think I disconnected the battery. Maybe it's dead. Battery's dead. Okay, gotta get a charger. Shoot. Not enough voltage. Huh. We actually have a working throttle position signal again. For a while that didn't work. Not very reliable. Oh well. Oh, I've got an Aranis boost reading. I gotta take a look at that. Might have a problem with the map sensor. Not quite. Having trouble with the map sensor calibration. Shoot. Might have to order a new map sensor. Try happy medium. Shoot!